Welcome back to this Football Manager 2020 experiment. This is part 3, so if you've missed parts 1 and 2, make sure you go and check them out first. Just to remind you what I've done in this experiment, I've created the world's greatest ever footballer, Mr. Perfect, and I put him into Oxford City, a club that started in the Vanarama South, but they have now made it into the English Premier League. There's been a few transfers here and I've had to transfer him back to Oxford City, but he is an Oxford City legend nonetheless, even though he has left the club a few times, as you can see there. They're up to a 2.5-star reputation now, and financially they're okay, but I don't really know how they're going to do in the Premier League. I forgot to mention Michael O'Neill actually took charge of Oxford City last season, so he's the man that managed to get them promoted. Lee Johnson left to go and manage Bristol City. Thank you for all the support on this little experiment series so far, much appreciated, and potentially we could do another part after this. If you enjoyed today's video, remember to leave a like. As you can see, Oxford City predicted to finish bottom of the Premier League. No surprise there. The team that they have isn't the best. It's very small. It's strangely small. It really is. But they have spent a bit of money. Bernabe has come in, a Spaniard, for 17 million. They've signed Jordan Ross, a regen from Crystal Palace. But with Mr. Perfect, everything is possible. Yes, the rest of the squad certainly isn't strong enough for the Premier League, but this man alone can keep them up. However, with 24 games to go, it's not looking good. It's February 2025. Oxford City are in the relegation zone, 7 points behind Newcastle. They do have a game in hand there, but it does not look good. They've only won 4 games and drawn twice this season. Mr. Perfect, personally, has had a decent season, but it was a really dreadful start to their Premier League campaign. Although their first ever game in the Premier League was a 2-2 draw against Arsenal away from home, thanks to Mr. Perfect. But after that, they lost multiple games. They crashed out the Carabao Cups in the second round. But then they beat Leicester 1-0 thanks to Mr. Perfect. And then a 4-0 win against Crystal Palace. But then a really torrid spell again before a 2-0 win against Leeds. And strangely, Mr. Perfect didn't play in that one. I think he might have been injured. And then another run of defeats. A 6-1 defeat against Bournemouth. Does not look good. They crashed out in the FA Cup third round against Norwich. But a second win against Leeds, thanks to goals from Mr. Perfect and Lyndon Gooch, the American, has given them a little bit of hope, but it's going to be extremely tough for them to stay up. Mr. Perfect so far this season has 7 Premier League goals, 3 assists, 3 Man of the Match awards. He's still flying in terms of average rating compared to the rest of the team. Still hasn't been capped by the England team, by the way. He's 22 now, 57 goals in 58 under-21 games. But he hasn't managed to break into the England squad, and I think that's probably because he's playing for Oxford City. This is his biography so far. He's actually won quite a lot. He did win the European Championships with England in 2021, and he's won plenty of awards in his career. And in fact, this year, or last year, 2024, he actually managed to win the World Player of the Year award, despite playing for a team, well, first part of the year in the Championship, second part of the year in the Premier League. And Oxford City, of course, have really struggled. But he still managed to win the Ballon d'Or. 24 goals and 10 assists in 35 appearances in 2024 with a very impressive average rating. What an achievement for a player that was playing mainly in the Championship that year. Footballer of the Year goes to him as well. World Player of the Year also goes to him. He's in World Team of the Year on the right wing. He also picked up the Under-21 Footballer of the Year award. Sensational stuff. Anyway, let's see if Oxford City can survive. It's really tough though. I just can't see it happening. I've accidentally holidayed too far. It's the 31st of October 2025, so we're actually 10 or 11 games into the next season. But as you can see, Oxford City are top of the table. So they survived last year, and quite miraculously, the start of this season, they've been unbeaten in the first 11 games. Quite incredible stuff. But what happened last season, I hear you ask? Well, they survived with 37 points. They managed to turn it around in the second half of the season. 11 wins in total and 4 draws in the end. They only scored 37 goals all season, and I imagine Mr. Perfect scored a large chunk of those. But let's have a look at their results from last year. He's now the captain, by the way, and he didn't leave the club in the summer. I didn't have to do anything this summer. He just stayed, which is really good news, and it shows how far Oxford City have come. But last year, of course, we had finished with that 2-1 win against Leeds, and after that, there's a lot of green there. They did lose the 2 next games, But a 3-1 win against Stoke, thanks to Mr. Perfect. 1-0 win against Brighton, a 1-0 win against Everton, 1-0 against Watford, 1-0 against Man United, 2-1 win against Norwich. And it wasn't just Mr. Perfect scoring all the goals. 1-1 draw against Man City, really good result. And then we finish off with a 3-2 win and a 3-3 draw against Southampton to stay up in the top flight. By the way, Oxford City are playing at Bournemouth Stadium at the moment because, of course, they need to increase the capacity of their own stadium, which is currently being increased up to 12,777, and it's going to be complete June next year, 2026. So 2 years at the Bournemouth Stadium before moving back to Oxford. But a really, really remarkable start to their second season in the Premier League, going unbeaten. They did crash out in the Carabao Cup, but look at this. Burnley, Liverpool, good draws against Wolves and Arsenal, wins against Bournemouth and Aston Villa, Brighton, Palace, draw against Everton, good wins against Derby and Man United. They do have Spurs and Man City and Chelsea to play in this sort of the first half of this season still, but it really has been a fantastic start. Whether they can maintain this remains to be seen. The squad is still pretty small, as you can see there. They've just not really signed that many players, and I mean even the youth squads aren't that big, but they did spend a lot of money. They spent £107 million, not selling anyone either. So they are currently rich thanks to the TV money coming in. They've gone up to 3-star reputation club, and they've spent all this money. Angelino's come in for £26.5 million, Charlie Masunda for £23 million from West Ham, Jimmy Summers, a regen, for £18 million from Derby. So yeah, loads of money spent this year to try and get them to compete, and it has worked. So let's proceed and see where they end up. As you can see, Mr. Perfect top of goals, average rating and player of the match awards as well. Just a quick update, it's now January 2026, halfway point of the season. Unfortunately, Oxford City have dropped down to 6th, so that really good start to the season has not managed to be maintained. As you can see here, they've actually lost the last few games, but interestingly, Mr. Perfect, I think he didn't get injured. I don't know what I'm talking about. I thought he might have got injured, but no, he has been playing, but they've just really struggled in the last 4 games after going multiple games unbeaten, as you can see. Was it 14 games unbeaten? 15 games unbeaten in the league, and then suddenly losing the last few. I think it was the first 14 actually. Yeah, first 14 games unbeaten. They've not managed to win in the last 4, which is a shame, but it's still an incredible achievement. So, and Mr. Perfect has been capped by England. 4 goals in 5 games for his country, which is fantastic to see. And it's the World Cup next year, or this year, sorry. It's now 2026. So maybe we'll get to see him in action in the World Cup. So Oxford City have finished 5th, 71 points in their second season in the Premier League. Unfortunately, they miss out on Champions League football, but we'll get to see Oxford City competing in the Europa League next year. And it's only the year 2026. This is incredible. The progress they've made thanks to one player. Mr. Perfect has transformed this club. He was top goal scorer in the Premier League this year with 30 goals, 32 goals in all competitions, 7.86 average rating in the league, 11 man of the match awards, really good average rating overall as well. He's now got 7 goals in 7 games for England, heading into the World Cup this summer. What an achievement. I assume he's won Player of the Season and all that jazz as well. Footballer of the Year, Mr. Perfect. Goal of the Season, not Mr. Perfect, but Morgan Rogers. I think he used to play for Oxford City. Yes, he did. He was on loan, that's why. Yeah, he did quite well. Mr. Perfect did get 2nd last year, by the way, in the Goal of the Season award. Manager of the Year goes to the new Oxford City manager, Portuguese Vitor Pereira, who has moved to Oxford. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know why Michael O'Neill left. Let's just have a quick look at their manager history. He just left, so he just decided to leave randomly. Didn't get sacked, just decided it had enough. Maybe his contract ran out, actually. Who knows? Player of the Year was also Mr. Perfect. Obviously, he's in Team of the Year as well on the right-hand side. Young player goes to Mr. Perfect as well. In fact, he won it last year as well. And top goal scorer as well, of course, with Martial 2nd and Harry Kane 3rd. This is the Oxford City squad. Mr. Perfect obviously dominates. Well ahead of Masunda in 2nd with the average rating there. How did they got on in the cup competitions? Of course, they lost in the Carabao Cup. FA Cup, they crashed out in the 4th round against Shrewsbury. That is not good. Mr. Perfect didn't play, so that's probably the main reason there. This was the end to their season, so it was a bit of a mixed second half to the season, wasn't it? But to finish 5th is still a really good achievement. So it's now the 10th of July 2026, and you'll notice Mr. Perfect now has 17 goals in 15 games for England. And there's a reason for that. They have managed to make it to the World Cup final, and they'll be taking on Belgium. And we've got to watch it. We just got to see Mr. Perfect in a World Cup final. Of course, we saw him in the Championship playoff final in the last video. And now it's time for the big one, the World Cup final. Of course, it doesn't have anything really to do with Oxford City, but it's just, I just thought it'd be a bit of fun to watch this World Cup final. It's in USA, by the way, at the MetLife Stadium. But it really was a fantastic World Cup campaign for Mr. Perfect. He scored a hat-trick in his first ever competitive game for England. Was it competitive? I don't know no, he played in the World Cup qualifiers, but his first ever game in the World Cup was a hat-trick. The second game he scored against Venezuela on a 6-0 win. Look at the players mentioned, by the way. Dele Alli, James Maddison, Sancho. 1-0 win against Iran. That wasn't the best result. They struggled in that one and managed to score in extra time. 2-0 win against Scotland. And then a 4-0 thrashing over USA with Mr. Perfect getting his second hat-trick. And then a 2-1 win in the semi-final. Mr. Perfect's penalty was the difference in that game in the end. Really good win against Italy. Welcome to the 2026 World Cup final then. It looks good to have Mr. Perfect in the middle there. I don't know why he's number 6. He's number 6 for Oxford City as well, I think. But maybe his hero's Bobby Moore. I don't blame him. But number 6 in attacking midfield does look a bit odd. So Rashford playing, Sancho, Mason Greenwood on the right hand side. We've got Loftus-Cheek, Phil Foden, Sessegnon, Stones. This regen, Richard Vaux. Tomori at right back, and in goal is Dean Henderson, plays for Everton these days. The Belgium team, I'm sure, have some quality players. Got a Regen up front, Mertens, Tielemans in attacking midfield. No De Bruyne, I guess he's a bit too old now, I'm guessing. Over 2026, 7 years in the future, I suppose so. Lukaku on the right hand side though, as captain, 153 caps for Belgium now, 94 goals, and he's still playing. Origi on the left, at the age of 31, interesting. Courtois still playing, 34 years old now. Right, let's get on with this. Come on, England. Come on, Mr. Perfect. We're supporting you. You can do this. Do it. Make Oxford City proud. First highlight of the World Cup final then. And Mr. Perfect trying to I don't know what he was doing there. He was sort of shielding. Cleared out wide. Here goes Origi for Belgium, who cuts in and plays it into Tielemans here, who has the long range shot, and it's just gone wide. Free kick, which Mr. Perfect will take, and he curls it beautifully. Courtois trips over the bar, and he's on the edge of the box ready for this Phil Foden corner. It's headed, and it's cleared by Belgium. Free kick to Belgium now. Tielemans into the box, headed away, and Foden can bring it clear. He's got Mr. Perfect to one side, but he plays it to Sancho instead. Mr. Perfect diving down the middle. It's into Mason Greenwood, bursts into the box, and he wins a penalty, possibly. It's gone to VAR. And Mr. Perfect has the chance to score another penalty, this time in the World Cup final. Of course, he's missed one in the Championship playoff final. But up he steps, and he slots this one away. No mistake from him. I think he's scored 3 penalties in this World Cup alone. He is the top goal scorer in the competition as well. 1-0 to England in the World Cup final, thanks to Mr. Perfect. After this World Cup final, I will holiday another season to see how Oxford City get on in their 3rd season in the top flight, and also in the Europa League. And if they manage to qualify for the Champions League, I think that will sort of be a good ending to this part 3, and then in part 4 we can see how they get on in the Champions League. Obviously they're big ifs at the moment, but you've got to fancy Oxford City getting into the Champions League next year. Oh, we might have another penalty here. Lots of VAR action in the World Cup final today, and no penalty. 32 minutes on the clock. We've got another highlight. England have certainly been the better team so far. Here's Greenwood running at the back line. Goes alone, has the shot well over. Now Belgium on the attack, but that's blocked. And Mr. Perfect, with his dribbling ability at pace, can scare the life out of this Belgium defence. Look at him go. He's hit it straight at the keeper, unfortunately. But, oh, what a save by Courtois. Mr. Perfect really should have scored. I mean, he's got 20 on finishing and composure. There's no reason not to stick that away, even after running halfway up the pitch. Loftus-Cheek gets blocked as far as Sancho, and he finishes, and it's 2-0 to England in this World Cup final. France won the last World Cup, by the way, 2022, the second in a row, beating Brazil on penalties. So this will be England's first win in a World Cup final since 1966, if they can manage it. And they should hold on. Here's Mr. Perfect, smashes one in from long range. Beautiful goal from our bald-headed genius. I don't know why he's bald. I gave him brown hair this time. Last time I gave him black hair. This time I've given him brown hair, short brown hair. And he's come out bald again. I'm not entirely sure why. This was nice play from Greenwood, but it is a fabulous strike. Look at that. How many goals has he got in the World Cup now? I've lost count. I can't remember. Got another highlight here before half-time. Although Sessegn's given it away to Mertens. It's a fantastic save by Henderson. And at the death here, Belgium can't get a goal back. Let's start the second half then. It's been a fantastic final so far for England. Surely far too much for Belgium to try and get back into this. Mr. Perfect looking for a hat-trick. Can he emulate Sir Geoff Hurst? Let's hope so. Rashford's through here, and Rashford should have made it 4. I think he's offside. It's been far too easy for this England team. I mean, they've already got world-class talent. Some of the best youngsters have developed into being world-class players on this game. And now with Mr. Perfect added to the mix, they're pretty unstoppable. They should have played him all those years when he was in non-league though. I know he was playing non-league football, but just his attributes are insane. But I understand why they didn't play him until the Premier League. Untested at the highest level, I suppose. Here goes Greenwood again. Really good run. Is he going to get his hat-trick? Oh, is this a red? Oh no, it's a yellow card. Thought it was going to be a red card then for Mertens, because it already showed that he had a yellow card. Anyway, off we go. Here's Cummins, who's come onto the pitch, into Mr. Perfect. Dribbles, has the shot, flashes it wide. First piece of action for him in this second half. Oh, Mr. Perfect does well, they're dummies, and now he's racing at the Belgian back line. Look at him go! Look at him go! Oh, he deserved a hat-trick there. What a run. He almost ran it too far, and he had to hit it from the angle. But he's surely going to get man of the match with a 9.3 rating today. 2 goals. Maybe should have had a hat-trick. But what a performance. Oh, what a strike here at the death for Belgium. 3-1. Mertens, the regen. That was a beautiful goal. Probably the goal of the game, to be fair. Look at this. That is a wonderful volley. But there we go. England are world champions thanks to Mr. Perfect, who is holding the trophy here. Absolutely delighted. He's the new Bobby Moore. But he's an attacking midfielder, of course. So, let's have a quick look to see. Yeah, top goal scorer of 10 goals in one tournament. 3rd best average rating. But the other 2 teams probably crashed out early on. Mr. Perfect with most man of the match awards as well. What a sensational tournament for him. I'll have to continue a day just to see if he picks up those awards. He has. He's picked up best player of the tournament. 10 goals in 7 games, an 8.24 average rating. There he is with the golden boot. Head of a Brazilian player. Goal of the tournament? It was actually the final. Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. Let's just have a look at Mr. Perfect's goal. Yeah, that Mertens volley was sensational, but it was a pointless goal in the end for them. But this is the second best goal of the tournament, and would have won goal of the tournament if it wasn't for that last second strike. Lovely strike from Mr. Perfect there against USA. He's in the dream team up front. Well, there we go. I think now what I've got to do is holiday another season, and we'll see how Oxford City get on in the Premier League and in Europe. So unfortunately, in their 3rd season in the top flight, Oxford City have dropped off. They've dropped down to 12th place, 42 points. Mr. Perfect was top goal scorer, won the most man of the match awards this year, 3rd in the average ratings. But overall disappointing year for Oxford City. I don't know if that's as a result of them playing in Europe. They've got a new manager. Frank de Boer's taken over. Pereira was sacked in February. Jagielka took over for a few days, and then Frank de Boer came in for the last part of the season. But it was actually quite a bad end to the season, so he's not done a good job. Look at these results from when he took over onwards. It's not been good, and they crashed out in the second knockout round of the Europa League, which isn't too bad, I suppose, overall. They did win their group, and I think it meant they automatically qualified for the second knockout round. I don't know if that's new rules, 14 points in the group. They were unbeaten, which is good. But yeah, they didn't actually take part in the first knockout round, looking at that. They went straight into the second knockout round and lost against Inter, which is a shame. Interestingly, they have been bought out by Chinese owners. Amazing. So they're rich. They've got 3.5-star reputation. They've got money. If we look at the finances, got plenty of money. How much is that? 81 million, I think. And I imagine the Chinese owners will probably pump money, and they've got a front-end sugar daddy now, which they didn't have before. They're into their... Oh, they're not in their new stadium. They're playing at Stadium MK. What's going on there? Why are they not playing in their own stadium? Let's have a look at this. So they're expanding it even more, up to 20,344. I don't know if that's to comply with European regulations now, because originally they were just expanding it to 12,000. But now they've expanded it even further. They're currently playing in Milton Keynes. So if we just look at a home game... So they were playing in John Woodley Arena at the start of the season, their new expanded stadium, of course. And yes, they were playing in Europe. So it's only recently that they've moved to... In fact, it's the end of the season. So they've played one season in their new expanded stadium, and they're expanding it even more now. And now they've moved to Milton Keynes, which is interesting. Now, one of the best transfers ever that I have ever seen on Football Manager is the fact that Neymar has signed on a free for Oxford City, earning 130k a week. He's left PSG after all those years. He's now got 165 caps for Brazil and 88 goals, but he has moved to Oxford City. Look at his physicals. They've really dropped off a cliff. And he had a fairly average season as a result of his attributes really dropping off. But I just think that's brilliant. They actually spent £109 million for the second season in a row. What are the chances of that? They sold a couple players as well. Mr. Perfect, I did move to PSG and move back again to prevent him from being signed for money. Now, I've actually only just uploaded part 1, and people are pointing out that I really should, on the pre-game editor, have made him have a future transfer of like 50 years' time. So like said in 2050, Mr. Perfect will move to PSG. And that would have prevented him from being signed at all by any clubs during this period of time. But I just overlooked that. I've done that before in the past, and I just completely forgot about it. So that's why I've been sort of moving him backwards and forwards between teams. I can't do that on the editor, unfortunately. I can't put a future transfer in, I don't think, on the in-game editor. So that's a bit unfortunate. I'm probably going to have to increase his wage as well, because I need to make it more realistic. I was making it realistic for the division that he was in, but now Oxford City have signed a ton of players. Their biggest signing was Callum Head from Newcastle, and he's on more money. And of course, Charlie Masindra and Neymar, both on over 100 grand there. Mangala as well, the Belgian. They signed him. So yeah, I do need to probably bring Mr. Perfect's wage up to the standard of the rest of the team. But I don't know, those high wages might have an impact on them, considering they haven't qualified for Europe next year. I think I'll do a part 4. I think I should holiday a few years into the future and see what happens, and to Oxford City, see what happens to Mr. Perfect. We want to keep him here, and we want him to try and continue to improve Oxford City. It's not just a single-handed thing now, because they've got money, but they wouldn't be in this position without Mr. Perfect. They wouldn't have got to the Premier League. They wouldn't have been able to get that TV money. They wouldn't have attracted Chinese owners if it wasn't for this one player that's dragged them up all of these divisions. It really is quite a special story. So yeah, I think we're actually, I just want to check the awards this season. So he didn't pick up like Football of the Year, unfortunately, because he wasn't playing at a team that finished at the top of the table, I guess. So that's understandable. Player of the Year, yeah, Golovin seems to be picking them all up. Team of the Year, he's on the right hand side there again. Young player. He's picked out for a third season in a row. This is the last year he can win it at the age of 24. Top goal scorer, it was him though for the second season in a row. 26 goals in 33 games. He was injured for a few games. His bravery did go down to 19 again, because injuries have an impact on bravery. But I've put it back up to 20, rectified that issue. He's now got 19 goals in 17 games for England, by the way, who surely... Oh, they're not top of the world rankings despite winning the World Cup. They've dropped down to 4th, below Brazil, France and Spain. But yeah, I think we'll end part 3 here. Thank you for watching. It's been a bit of a longer video thanks to the World Cup final. We end on a little bit of a disappointing season for Oxford City, but hopefully they can recover with that Chinese money. A few big stars in the team as well. I'm not sure Neymar's really going to benefit the team considering his attributes. He's more of a player to sell shirts, isn't he? But yeah, I'm looking forward to part 4. We'll see how Oxford City get on in the next few years. But until next time, enjoy FM20. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you very soon.